discuss all kinds of topics on here, so don't be shy and let me know what you think. Today I'm going to be talking about YouTube, and not only YouTube itself, but some of the alternatives that you can get out there that are very similar to YouTube, but maybe have things working in their favour that YouTube now unfortunately doesn't. Now, this podcast episode is not just for those people who want to be YouTube creators or create content online. It's also about those people who maybe have a podcast like this one and want to start putting videos online somewhere to gain extra listeners. And it's also for those people who want to watch videos online, because although Google has by far the most watched people of all time, it's also becoming rather crowded, and there's so much content out there that maybe it's a good idea to look for something that isn't quite so big, so that you're able to get the more unusual stuff, more unusual content, shall we say, and perhaps content that isn't quite so restricted as YouTube has become over recent years. And of course, I'm going to be showing you a selection of those alternatives, but there are lots out there. The numbers are growing, and if you know of one that you think is really good and people should look at, then by all means let me know. This is an open forum. You can talk to me about anything on this video, so please leave a message on the Anchor app if you're listening on there, or whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on. Leave a comment. You can also get hold of me on social media, Man About Life, and that's on Twitter, and also on Instagram, and also of course on TikTok, which I'm going to be battling with in the coming weeks' time. So looking at YouTube, of course, started in 2005 and was quite unique in the way that it had videos you could upload and you could look at them online, and basically anyone in the world, if they had access to the internet, could look at this video and just experience someone else's life. Now this was quite new at the time. There wasn't really much around at the time. Facebook was not even thought of back then, and of course you also had things like MySpace, which I was on, which kind of started off the social media revolution really in some ways, but there wasn't really anything like this in terms of YouTube. And it started in 2005, bought by Google in 2006, of course, which is one of the things that a lot of people liked about YouTube because of the power that Google had, but also some of the things that people are not liking so much about YouTube these days. Of course, Google and YouTube had to change because things were difficult early on. For instance, a lot of people early on were uploading their family videos and uploading things that they had made for just a bit of a laugh, and they were putting all kinds of music on there. A lot of the music was copyrighted, of course, which meant that in the early days they had to remove a lot of videos, and a lot of people lost a lot of their movies that they had spent a lot of time creating with family and friends and stuff like that, because it was using copyright songs and things like this and copyrighted music. So that was a bit of a problem. And as we're going on now into the 2020, we're seeing more changes to YouTube. They're constantly adapting the algorithm and dealing with problems such as online abuse and things like this, and the kind of content that people can create. They're having issues now with, of course, the copyright issues and not having certain content advertised at children because of advertising, things like this. There's a whole plethora of things that's now being faced by YouTube, and they have to adapt to that and they have to change to it. Now, the problem that I find with it is, and YouTube is a fantastic thing. It's watched by billions of people every day. Millions of people are uploading videos every day, and there's a huge amount of content on there for virtually anything you could possibly want to look at. And it's becoming, it is one of the most popular things to be watched, especially on a mobile device. So what you've got also is the problem that there is a big issue with privacy on YouTube, and people putting things on there that may be defamatory and maybe videos attacking other YouTubers and attacking other content, which of course is not a very nice thing at all. And this has caused YouTube to become a little bit protective over some of their content. But it also means that YouTube have now started to look at the bigger picture in terms of the bigger companies. A lot of the big media companies like BBC, NBC, CNN, they are now getting, or it appears to be getting, more favoured features on YouTube than the smaller content creators. Because if you're a new YouTube channel, it's hugely difficult to get traction on YouTube. I mean, yes, there are things that you can do, and there are certain ways that you can attract more views on your channel and you can get yourself in front of more people. But at the end of the day, it is very difficult because there are so many channels, so much content, that you can get lost a little bit in the search results. And with YouTube now seemingly favouring the bigger YouTube channels and the mainstream media channels, there are a few YouTubers who are getting quite upset by the fact that they are not only struggling to get a following, but also in some cases, especially with YouTube has these bot clearances where they clear out a lot of the old accounts, and they remove a lot of subscribers that a lot of people think that they need to have. So it's causing a few issues around the smaller YouTubers. Now, this isn't necessarily a problem for people who are watching YouTube because they just watch their favourite YouTuber. But it also means that sometimes there may be things that you might want to watch that YouTube think aren't appropriate, or YouTube think are against their policy and things like this. Not necessarily because they're bad, but just because they don't fit in with what YouTube wants to show as their content these days. So what do you do? Well, if you're a content creator, you could try an alternative to YouTube. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to win you loads of views or you're going to get millions of subscribers, because obviously a lot of these alternatives are quite small compared to YouTube. And of course you have to factor in the fact that Google owns YouTube, and if you've ever done a search on Google, you'll know that at the very top you get Google showing you videos based on what you've searched for from YouTube. So if you're a YouTuber and someone searches for something that's part of your content, it's going to be there somewhere. So there is that benefit to it, of course, because Google is one of the biggest search engines. However, lots of people are now moving away from Google and doing other search engines such as Bing and DuckDuckGo and things like that. So they're not necessarily going to favour YouTube anymore, they're just going to favour the best searches. So if you're going onto an alternative platform, you may have some good thing comes from that. You may have searches and results that you don't get from Google because you're using, or people are using, alternative search engines. So what can you do about this? Well, there are lots out there, and I'm not going to be talking about Twitch as an alternative because everyone knows that Twitch is probably the biggest alternative to YouTube at the moment, but it's also more of a live streaming service. It does have uploaded videos, of course, and it's moving more into that kind of area, but it's owned by Amazon. It's still a big conglomerate owning it, and although Twitch is probably slightly less in terms of the rules that you have to adhere to, it is more of a live streaming service. So I'm not going to go for Twitch. I'm going to go for the smaller platforms that you may have heard of, you may not have heard of. But the good thing about these is not only will you be able to find content that you might like, but also if you're a YouTuber, or if you're someone who wants to get your content online, or you're a podcaster, you may find that you're working with a smaller area. So there's less people on the network. They're more likely to find your videos, and you're more likely to get initial traction. And then, of course, if you're really desperate to get on YouTube, you can then use those subscribers and move over to YouTube to get some traction straight away. But anyway, enough about that. Let's get looking at some of the alternatives that you can use. Okay, so there are many alternatives out there, and if you do a search on Google, or on any other platform for that matter, and you're looking for alternatives, there are going to be those that are going to be top of the list because they are the most popular alternatives. For example, Dailymotion, which is probably the biggest alternative, and it gets about 262 million average monthly visits, which isn't bad. I mean, it's not as many as YouTube get, but it's not bad. And when you are a smaller content creator, it could be a way of getting that traction that you want to get your name and your face out there on the content that you want to visit. It's very different. It's very similar, I should say, to YouTube. However, it's not ad-free, and you do have to pay if you want to make higher resolution videos, so like 1080p. So there are payment options on there which might not appeal to everybody, but if you're just starting out, it could be a good way to get yourself started. Another one, Vimeo, which is again different from YouTube in the fact that it offers more higher quality videos. Lower monthly visits, around 86 million, which is a lot of people might say is quite small, but again, if you're starting small, 86 million views, they're more likely to look at your content because there's going to be less videos on Vimeo than there are, for example, on YouTube. So you've got more chance, but there is a limit. You can only upload 500 megabytes per week for free. Anything more than that you have to pay for. So if you want to upload a lot of content, then you might have to consider a paid option for that. There are some that are even smaller that are gaining popularity. One of them is BitChute, which gets around 10 million visits at the moment per month. Again, you might not think it's a lot, but it's growing among a lot of people, especially YouTubers, for example, because it focuses a lot on free speech. So people who perhaps can't get their videos monetized or their videos put on YouTube, if they're the sort of person that likes to use free speech and likes to talk about things that are important to them that maybe YouTube doesn't want them to talk about, then BitChute is something that a lot of YouTubers who are being censored on YouTube are moving towards BitChute. So it is one of those things, but it does have a lot of political content on there because of that reason. So if you want to make political videos, then it could be an alternative for you, but if you don't like that sort of thing, it's probably not the kind of place you want to be going to. DTube, quite small, only gets around 500,000 visits a month, but it means that there are going to be a lot of people out there who are going to see your content because there's not so many viewers and there's less people adding to the site, going on there, and because it's a lot less daily videos and less videos being uploaded, you've got more chance of finding something and you've got more chance of being found on there as well. And if you link it to your social media, of course, it could be a good way to get something out onto the internet and get it seen rather than just getting lost in the whole YouTube ether, if you know what I mean. Another one is Libry, L-B-R-Y. Now this is ad-free, but it doesn't allow anyone but the publisher to remove their videos. So it's quite good in that sense, because then it means you have complete control over your own videos, which is a good way if you had a problem with that in the past. There are searchability issues with Libry, I should say, or Libry, however you want to pronounce it. So it could be a bit of a drawback if people are searching for content on the site. It does have certain issues, so your content might not be found. But if you're using social media and you're linking to it, then it might be a little bit easier in that sense. PeerTube is a similar thing to BitChute in a way, because if you're getting your videos censored or removed from YouTube, then it's a new kind of platform, and it's ad-free. There is an ad-free option, and it does support high quality videos, and it's open source, so that you can contribute to the code. If you're one of the sort of people that likes to code and add things into a platform, become part of the community, you can do that. And it doesn't have any recommendations algorithms like YouTube does, so you kind of find content as you find it. It's not something that's like, oh, you've previously watched this, so now you're going to only see videos based on that. You can practically search and see whatever you want, which is a good alternative, I should say. Popular mentions, MetaCafe, very good, but uses small videos, like very short videos. So if you're the kind of person who likes to waffle on for an hour or so, then probably not the platform for you, because it does have quite small bite-sized videos on there. It doesn't really like content to be too big. VO, I think it's pronounced VO, V-E-O-H, I think it's a popular channel. It gets around 985,000 views a month, and it does have a lot of films and TV shows on there, which is good, but it's not very well organised. So if you like something to be in sections and well organised, then it might not be the place for you. And of course, that is probably the most popular alternatives that you're going to find to YouTube. As I said before, Twitch is an alternative, but it's quite a big alternative, and as I said before, it's more aimed at gaming and it's more aimed at streaming, so I wouldn't necessarily say it's the kind of place you want to go to if you're making videos about cats and things like this, or if you're making videos about content that you're creating or things that you're creating. It's not going to be that kind of place for you, I don't think. So it's best to stick to some of the alternatives that are smaller, but you've got more chance of being seen and having people perhaps then use word of mouth to spread the message of your content, rather than relying on YouTube's algorithm and search results, which don't always favour the smaller YouTube creators, unfortunately. And that's about it for today. I hope that you've enjoyed this little ramble that I've had. It has been a bit of a ramble today. Thank you for joining me, as you always do. And if you have, as I said before, any alternatives to YouTube that you think are better than the ones I've mentioned, just tell me. I'd love to hear it. Again, you can get hold of me on the social medias, Man About Life. I'm on Twitter, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm on what's the other one? TikTok as well. So if you want to see me on any of those, drop me a line, or just leave a message on the Anchor app if you're listening to it on there. Thank you for joining me, and until the next time, goodbye.